What happens when people love the drama of the OC but also have a deep connection with Fight Club? Well, you get one of the worst rated films of the 2000s, Never Back Down. This movie has a chokehold on me because I grew up watching a lot of martial arts movies, but when this movie came out, in my opinion, this was like the first big fight film that just contained white people. And after almost 20 years of this film's release, I just have one question to ask. Why was this film so popular? And the answers, they may shock you. Or not. What's going on, party people? How are we all doing? And yes, today we are taking a trip down memory lane to relive this 2000s classic. But before we get any further, press subscribe, because for every subscriber we get, a young teen out in the world that's high on testosterone puts down his boxing gloves and speaks to a therapist and explains why he thinks that he's the reason why his parents got divorced. So for all of you that have like short attention spans, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the time capsule of this film. So this movie had a $20 million budget, made $40 million at the box office, and it made an additional $20 million on DVD sales. And if you're watching this and you remember DVDs, how is that lower back pain going? And honestly, these numbers are really low, and it blew my mind when I read these because I distinctly remember that everyone that I knew had watched this movie before, because everyone watched this movie and all of a sudden thought that they were like an A-class fighter. So every house party that I went to on the weekends, it was just scrap city. This movie did absolutely terrible on Rotten Tomatoes, but that didn't stop the filmmakers, because they went on to not make only 2, but 3 sequels to this movie. This literally embodies the meme of just one more sequel, bro. Please trust me, just one more sequel and we can tell those film critics to eat dirt, because this is the one that's going to make us rich. Now I want to talk about the casting, because this is absolutely insane. The supporting actor of this film, Evan Peters. Yeah, that guy. The coach in this movie played alongside Leonardo DiCaprio in Blood Diamond. This movie also has Amber Heard? Yeah, you know, the girl from the Aqua movie in that court case film? Yeah, that Amber Heard. And the last cast member that I want to talk about is the villain of this movie, Cam Gigandet. Gigandet? Cam Gigandet. This guy had a chokehold of the 2000s because he was the villain in everything. He was the villain in the OC, he was a villain in the Twilight franchise, and then took a massive pivot to play the churchy guy in Easy A, which was actually quite cathartic to see, because in that movie he got herpes or some shit, and you know, I feel like justice was served after all the villains that he played in the past. Oh no, I spoiled a movie that came out over a decade ago? Grow up. I say all of this because the main character of the film did absolutely nothing after this movie came out, which, you know, honestly speaking, that sucks. Could you imagine doing this film thinking it's your breakout role and you're gonna have this massive career in Hollywood, and then all of your peers have that massive breakout and you don't? Yikes. That's gotta hurt. Now, the soundtrack of this film is the main star, in my opinion. And it's the main reason why I wanted to make this whole video in the first place, because I was training at Muay Thai like a year ago, and my coach put this soundtrack on, and just like a sleeper agent, something woke up inside of me, and all of a sudden, I could recite this entire movie. And I haven't stopped thinking about that moment for the past 12 months. I mean, check out this track list. Honestly, chef's kiss of nostalgia. And I want to talk about the overusage of montages in this movie, because for whatever reason, in the 2000s, everyone was doing montages. There was 14 montages in this movie, which honestly, I think is the only reason why these directors had this banging soundtrack. They were like, no, we got to put these songs in, okay? I don't care if it's another montage. We're putting this song in the film. And this movie just brings a general vibe about it that I cannot explain. If you grew up in the 2000s, or you want to know what it was like to grow up in the 2000s, I feel like this movie encapsulates that perfectly, aside of all the fighting. I mean, it captures like pop culture perfectly, and house parties, as well as like early social media use. And with anything in the 2000s, they were just experimenting the hell out of this movie. They had crazy flash transitions and all these like speed ramps that they were using in it. Which, if you wanted to watch a film in the 2000s, I think like this is the perfect way to describe what it was like back then, because everyone was just running off vibes. Right? No fucks to give, just vibes. And honestly speaking, I think that's probably the last good thing I'm going to say about this movie, because this movie is honestly hot trash. If I could for a moment use my film degree to become like an armchair film critic, I just want to let you know, within the first 10 minutes of this film, we know everything about this movie. We know all the characters and giving a taste to the audience as to what's actually to come for the movie. Okay, that's in the first 10 minutes. This movie goes for almost 2 hours long. It did not have to be that long. And the best way that I can describe as to why this was so painful to watch in chronically online terms, it's like when Mr. Beast does an ad read for his video and he does the slimy thing where like the bar across the screen goes really fast, but then really slow at the end. So, he gets retention. That's what this movie is, okay? That's the best analogy that I can use. Because I feel like in the first 15 minutes, they set everything up and then they just drag this thing out for almost 2 hours long. And it honestly gets to a point in the movie where I'm pulling out my phone to scroll on Instagram Reels to watch people get hit by cars because that was more entertaining than what was happening on the screen. The dialogue in this film is also hot trash. I feel like it was just written by someone that was Gen X or even a boomer because they just use so many taglines in this movie, which was just really cringe to see because Adam Brody's character in the OC, he likes to have his zany little catchphrases and taglines, and I feel like they just did this, but for 2 hours straight. It did get me thinking though, honestly, in the next 5 years, I wonder if there's going to be like a brain rot movie that comes out, just like 90 minutes of Skibbity Toilet. Just something to think about, Hey, if you're Hollywood and you're watching this, pay up. Pay up if that comes up in the next 5 years, okay? While researching for this video, I found this quote from a film critic that perfectly encapsulates this movie. I laughed so much at the litany of cliches that I finally had to admit I was entertained from start to finish by this cheesy knockoff. And I think that's the best way to describe this movie. It's like a car crash, It's just like, this movie sucks, but I can't stop watching it. It's just something about this movie that frustrates the hell out of me, but I'm just wanting to see one more montage because I want to see what banging song that they use. God damn it. The plot points of this film are absolutely hilarious because, again, like I said earlier, this was early social media use, and this is a time when Soulja Boy's Crank That came out on YouTube, and ironically they used a remix of that song in this movie. But a major plot point of this movie is that people film their fights and then they upload it for the internet to see, and they all go viral. And it's crazy to think that in 2025 because it's like, what are you doing? You're just incriminating yourself. But back then they were like, nah, this is the cool thing to do. Which honestly might explain like a lot of like old YouTube. I feel like at the time of this movie coming out, there was just like a lot of fight videos that just kind of were being uploaded. Again, this is back in the time where YouTube was like more free range. You could say slurs and get a gold play button. That's an analogy that I always like to use. It was like slurs and fighting, gold play button. That's the crazy part of YouTube back in the 2000s. There are also just so many plot holes in this film that I found really funny because there's all like these backstories for characters that they seem just to skip over completely, or I feel like they were screening this film to test it, or giving the script around to their friends to give their input, and they're like, oh hey, so what's the deal with this character? What's their story? And then the writers just panic and they're like, okay, let's just write this thing real quick. The scene will go for 30 seconds and then we'll get back to fighting. Which is kind of annoying because there are so many backstories that I was probably more interested in than the movie itself. Like the main character's younger brother, the reason why they had to move towns in the first place is because he got like a scholarship for tennis at another school. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude. I want to watch a whole movie about that. I don't care about this bozo fighting because he blames himself for his dad's death. Which brings me to explaining what this movie is, because I can't play any clips of this film, otherwise my video will get pulled down, alright? And I'm not going to sit here and explain every bit of plot points of this entire film because this YouTube video would end up being as long as like a debate between Ethan and Hassan, and honestly, I don't care about it that much. So here are the cliff notes of this entire film. Let me explain to you real quick everything that happens in the first 15 minutes of this film. So our main character, he gets into a fight. We set it up. This dude loves to scrap. And then they move schools. He meets the love interest, the side character, and the main villain, all within the span of this 15 minutes. And lastly, kids in this new school, they love to fight. He gets invited to a party, gets introduced to the Fight Club world that this school revolves around. The party is a setup for him to get beat up by the bully, and then he's like, I want revenge on this, okay? I'm the guy that beats up people, not the bully. Jake joins a fight club to train to beat this bully, and honestly, throughout the entire 2 hours of this film, there's this weird sexual tension between him and the bully, who's gonna kiss who first. So this entire plot just builds up to the main boss fight of this film, which is held at this thing called the Beatdown, which sounds like a category that you would look up on the hub. But because Jake has learned all these lessons about himself and he's made peace and doesn't blame himself for his dad's death anymore, he's like, you know what, maybe I don't need to fight, right? I've got the girl now, I've got my friends, life is good. And that's honestly where the movie should have ended, because it's like the perfect way to end this circle of cliche coming to age films. And I would have thought this would be a passable film. But that's not what happened. No, much like one of the latest episodes of The Studio where Ron Howard screens his latest film, this movie decides to go on for another 30 minutes. So let's speed run this hoe. The bully isn't happy that he doesn't get the beat down on his lover, so he sets up a trap to bait the side character of the film, which is his best friend in this movie, and beats him to a pulp to a point of hospitalization. And all of a sudden, Jake is ready to fight again, but he has this weird quote where he says, if I don't beat him, who's next? He's gonna kill you, my girlfriend, and everyone in my family unless I beat him up. I'm like, bro, that's not how this real world works, all right? You guys are like seniors in high school. Just wait a few more months and then you'll never have to see him again. But I digress. So Jake goes to his fight club and there's this pointless back and forth fighting sequence. And honestly, I'm not going to explain to you all the little plot points that happen throughout this because Jesus fucking Christ, this movie has gone for almost 2 hours. But Jake and his lover end up banging it out in the parking lot outside. And of course, Jake wins. God damn. Oh, let's just stop recording because this video is just long enough. It's just as long as a fucking movie. Then we reach our final montage of this movie, the 14th and final montage of this film. Jake and his lover, they're together, not the lover that he banged out in the parking lot. No. They have a little final face-off in the parking lot and they see each other from across the parking lot at the school and they just give each other a nod of approval. And honestly, that is one of the biggest plot holes of this entire movie. Did you not see what the villain did to the side character of this movie, to Evan Peters' character? He put him in the goddamn hospital. You think he's just gonna let this one slide? Like Jake just beats him in a fight and then the villain's like, you know what? Respect, man. Respect. And no, it's all good between us. No, like this dude is clearly a psychopath, alright? He's planning to blow up your apartment in your sleep. So why I find this film just so weird compared to all the other martial arts films that I watched growing up. All these martial arts films that I watched growing up had all these cultural lessons that I learned in it about like loyalty and family, and one could argue that this movie has all of that. But the problem is this film is just full of Abercrombie models, and there's just something about that doesn't sit right with me. Because the entire time I'm watching this movie, I'm watching these people bang it out on screen, and I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care. You're white, you're hot, you have the hot girlfriends. I don't care about any of you. All right, so what did we learn from this movie, and what did I learn from this video that is now spread across 2 memory cards? Well, much like the Drake and Kendrick beef, violence is the answer. But for real, I had to make a video about this film because it has lived rent-free in my mind since it came out and I bought it on DVD. And I know this video probably won't do well for the algorithm, but I know that I'm going to sleep well at night, knowing that I have finally put this film to rest and I can just go on with my life, just listening to a soundtrack that was full of bangers. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.